Dawn Montefusco, life coach for writers and creatives. And this is Write From Your Heart, how to unleash your creativity, share your message, and leave a lasting legacy. And today we have one of my favorite people, Devorah Spillman. Devorah has been a master storyteller for over 30 years. Today, she's also an intuitive coach and helps writers, creatives, and entrepreneurs to find the clarity and confidence to tell their deep, authentic story, to live their purpose, and transform their lives. Her in-story group takes people on a journey to find and manifest their soul's calling and bring their story, mission, and message out into the world. Devorah has clients all over the world following their calling, writing books, and building businesses based on the deep work that accesses inner stories and the power to integrate and use all parts of ourselves. Wow, that felt so good to read. Hi, Devorah.
Hi, Dawn.
I think I'm going to read that every day just to make it. Oh. So tell us what you've been up to these days and what projects you've been working on.
All right. Well, look, as anybody who's ever heard of me before knows that everything about me is all about stories. And it's very funny because even in my regular life, I'm always the one who, I love the speeches and all the stories, and I want to know the whole story of what happened. And I think it's because I realized so much of the secret of who we really are is inside of our stories. And so one of my new kind of harebrained schemes or new exciting projects is my next annual Path to Purpose Project interview series. I am going to add another dimension. I already did something where I took big experts and had them share their purpose and their story. And then I told my clients who are just starting out with their stories and their vision, I told them, I said, you know what? I want to put you on my summit. And they said, no, we're so not doing that. And I said, yes, you are. And they did. And it's because I have such a strong belief that we have something to say, and that so many of us have had our voice shut down for one reason or another as we grew. And so what is happening is that so many of us are feeling this calling that we still have something to say, a difference to make, a story to tell. So the last 2 years, I have put my clients on my summit, and they're amazing. This year, I got a whole nother idea. It came actually from one of my clients who was talking about wanting to tell people's stories, to tell the stories that nobody knows. And it occurred to me that what I could do was invite well-known experts onto my summit and invite them to bring with them onto the summit somebody whose story made a big difference in their life, but is perhaps not famous or well-known in any particular way. And so that really interests me. 1 year I did the power of story, meaning the story behind your story, or the story of your story, like what happened to big experts when they finally told their deep story.
Yes. Oh, I love this.
So I did that 1 year, but this year my idea is that we all have people whose story has made a difference to us. So I want to have your story and somebody else's story together. So that's one project. So that'll be the Path to Purpose Story Project, where it's going to kind of go a little bit deeper into bringing more stories forward. And part of this goes with my sense that so much healing happens through stories. And for me, it's a little bit connected to my own cultural heritage, being Jewish. And both my parents grew up in Europe during the time of Hitler. They both escaped, my father from Holland and my mother from Germany. Thank God they were not in concentration camps or anything like that. But my mother went through Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass in Germany, and she used to tell me all kinds of stories about her time there.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me when I thought about the Holocaust that we have this extraordinarily vast body of literature about the Holocaust. And I thought, you know what? We healed ourselves by telling our story over and over and over, and stories of extraordinary humanness through
Yes.
such darkness. And I think we gave ourselves our soul back in a way.
Yes.
So I've thought about that when I've worked with individuals who come into my world and say, I know I'm supposed to do something more. I know something's calling me, but I don't know whether it's any good. I don't know whether it's really, I'm any good. Honestly, it comes up a lot. And oddly enough, what happens when they start telling their stories, all of a sudden you see them light up.
Yes.
Oh, I did. Oh, yeah, I did that. Oh, I did that. And it's so amazing how often our gifts and what's extraordinary about us are hidden in our stories.
Yes.
So I find that, you know, in the in-story process I've created lets people go back and pull forward their stories. You know, like the marketer who was the first girl newspaper deliverer, you know, the first newspaper girl in her neighborhood, right? Or, you know, the writer who, you know, was giving such a great speech, the stage broke and he just kept going with his speech. Like it didn't stop him. And on, people find childhood stories that show how they've always been.
Yes.
Like the strength of who they've always been. So that's one area, is really looking at and shining a light on how healing and transformative it is to hear stories.
Yeah.
It's like a little invisible. Like it's almost like the fish in water. Like we live in a sea of story. It's how we know who we are, but it's like we can't see it.
How do you give people permission? I love this because, you know, we were talking about how as writers, you know, like that's mostly what I'm helping people with. They oh, I should write this. Oh, no, I should write this. I should write that. I should write this. Someone, you know, and then there's what they really want to say, or what, you know, and it doesn't matter if it's a blog, if it's a book, if it's an essay. How do you help someone actually tell the story that they want to tell, not the one they think they should tell?
So that's a great question. And often people come to me and they say, Devorah, I know I have a story to write, but I cannot get a single word to go out of me and on the page. And it's because of that should. Well, maybe it should be a chapter book. No, maybe it should be an essay book. No, maybe it should. They're so fixed on the final form. So it's, as a writer, you'll know this. If you try to edit before you write, nothing comes out. So what I have created is a guided process, which we're going to do before this interview is over, that leads people past that resistance, past their try harder mind, and into that content in your subconscious, that place where you can reach beyond the muse, you know, your higher self, all that other realm. You can't get there by trying harder. Our try harder mind will not take you there. It will take you on your hamster wheel around and around. And I get a lot of clients and I say, do you feel like you're kind of in the spin cycle?
Did you call it the try harder mind? I love that. It doesn't work. It's a counterintuitive.
Correct.
That you're tell us a little more about why the try harder mind doesn't work.
Because of resistance. If, you know, I know you know Stephen Pressfield's wonderful book, The War of Art. Yeah. So if you read that, he also says the same message. Every creative endeavor, no matter what, will hit resistance. Yeah. I call it the goo. And the reason I call it the goo, and there's a webinar on the front page of my website that everyone can get for free if they want it. But I use the caterpillar metaphor for the creative process, right? It's a classic. But when the caterpillar makes its chrysalis, it doesn't just sprout little butterfly wings. It literally turns to goo. And from that goo forms the butterfly. And then it must struggle actually out of the chrysalis in order to be able to fly. That goo, that middle stage, it's impossible to reach the creative product without going through the goo.
Wow.
And so I teach my people to say, oh, I'm in the goo. What do I need to do? only thing you need to do when you're in the goo is something. The one thing not to do when you're in the goo is beat yourself up for being in it.
Wow. Let's pause, people. This is important stuff. The one thing you can do when you're in the goo is something, right? The thing not to do is to beat yourself up that you're in the goo. That's important. Wow.
But if you know that the goo is just the second step in the creative process, which in big words you could say is vision, chaos, manifestation. And here you'll really love this. This is basically how God made the world, because like I'm Jewish, I love text. And so in the biblical text, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the very next thing it says, and the earth was chaos.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? God has a vision, then it's all chaos. And then God says, let there be light. Manifestation. If God had to do it that way, what, we think we don't have to?
Yeah. That's awesome.
So if you're in the goo, you say, I'm in the goo. And think of it like quicksand. If you struggle, beat yourself up, you go down more. To get out of it, you either have to reach out, grab a branch, like read a book, get an essay, or you need a friend to throw you a rope and pull you out. When you're in the goo, you say, oh, I'm in the goo. What do I need to do?
Oh,
That's it. That's it. And so that knowing that as part of the creative process is really important. Okay. So when a person gets in that spin cycle, so maybe they're in the goo, and the try harder mind, right? You asked me what that is. So I said Stephen Pressfield, because it's also called resistance. And he says, same thing, all creative endeavor will hit resistance. And when you hit resistance, if you push on it, it will always win.
Yes.
You cannot push on it. That's the try harder. I'm going to try harder. So I created a process that outsmarts resistance. It sneaks around the goo and around resistance and allows you to access the content without using your try harder mind and without having to press against that resistance. And you'll see when we go through it how it does that. And so what that does for somebody who has a big vision, like I have a woman who I work with who she is in the higher echelons of Kaiser and is creating and writing on mindfulness for Kaiser, for higher echelon people in that world to bring into the world and to create a position called the Chief Mindfulness Operations, right?
Oh, that's amazing.
Right. And so think about it. And she uses this process to get at the deeper messages that she wants to embed into the culture.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right. So what it does is it takes you around that cultural resistance that you've got to do it right. You know what I said? Like you asked me, what about the shoulds?
That's right. Yep.
So this process, what it does is it allows a person to access that deep content and not worry about what form you're going to deliver it in. First, you get that source content. Then you can shape it into anything you want. You can shape it into a book or a blog or a talk or whatever. Because the content is what you have to have. None of that form will do you any good if you have not gotten access to your deeper source content.
I love this. Do you want to try it?
Sure. You ready to go? Okay.
I'm like, sounds exciting.
All right. So, okay. So to do this process, basically anybody who's listening, all you need is just a few minutes to close your eyes and be somewhere where you can get still, close your eyes and go through a process. And if you're not there, you can always come back. All right. So go ahead and close your eyes and just begin to notice your breath coming in and out. Really allow yourself to feel that shift to stillness. And now feel a sense of breathing bigger than your physical self. And then allow your awareness to shift to that flow from above. Feel a sense of connection to God, source, the universe. Feel that pure source of love and light coming down to the top of your head, filling your whole body, your whole being with light, love, healing, blessing, guidance, clarity, down through your feet into the earth, grounding you in the earth. And breathe up that solid, rooted, comforting energy of the earth into the center of your being. And be aware of being in that state of connected flow. This is the first step of my in-story guided process. It has the acronym STATE. And the first step is always stop and breathe and allow yourself to shift into stillness and to access that state of connected flow. The second step is think about it. And this step is used for many different things. You can think of what's blocking you, what you're working on, what direction you're going in. And so for right now, I want you to think about who you are, what you do in the world, and what's calling you forward. Do you have a book, a story, a message, a vision? What's calling you forward? And let that kind of be ever so gently in the front of your consciousness. And in my longer term work, often we'll go back and collect a story here also. You can use this process to breathe back into your childhood and collect a story. But for right now, for the sake of time, we're gonna do the metaphor piece of it. So for this time, what I want you to do is, after you tune into who you are, what you do in the world, what's calling you forward, the next two steps always go together, which is ask and trust. And so ask, what is an image or a metaphor for who I am, what I do in the world, for what's calling me forward? And the key here, the way you outsmart your try harder mind, is you trust the first image that pops into your mind, no matter what it is. Like if you already got three things and you're going, not that, not that, not that, yes, that. The key here is to trust the first thing you get. And if you didn't get anything yet, just be a little patient. And maybe we'll do a little backup exercise at the end to help with that. Trust what you get. Ask and trust are the keys to accessing content in this realm. Once you get into the state of connected flow, you can think about whatever you want and ask anything you want and trust the answer you get. So the last step is explain, interpret. Ask, what is this about? What is the message? How am I like this image? How is this image like me? What does it seem to be about? And the more detailed you can see your image, the more you can let it develop, grow, add detail, the more useful it will be to you. And be a little playful. I always help people with this. You'll have an opportunity to get me help if you need it, but trust first your own sense of what is the message of this. Sometimes the image will be very beautiful and meaningful. You can breathe it into your being. Notice what is the feeling of it. And be a little bit open and trusting to see what it seems to be about.
Can I tell you?
Yep, so now let me just bring people out. So now just come on back, everybody, and just take a deep breath, bring yourself back, open your eyes. I encourage everyone to write it down, what you got. What Dawn is going to do now is what I normally do with people is I have you say like what you thought of in the think about it step and then what you got for your image. So just say briefly what you thought about in the think about it step and then tell me what your image was.
The think about stuff, you mean what I'm bringing forth to the world?
Yeah, like what's calling you forward.
What was calling me forward was to put together a book of actual poetry that rhymes. So not as like that. There's a rhythm to the work. I have a knack for that, and I really have neglected it. And so I write spontaneously a lot, like songs and rhymes, and I used to do long spoken word pieces, and I gave it all up because I shouldn't anymore. I was supposed to, I was going to write other things, and it's come back recently, and it's just, it's a dream. It makes no sense,
Okay.
but it's what I want, you know?
Great. And what was your image?
The first image,
Yep.
the first image was, okay, the very, 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 very first image was a cartoon grape.
Mm-hmm.
With big eye, but googly it, like a fun cartoon grape, like grapes, like a whole bunch of, like a purple walking thing of grapes. It made no sense to me at all at first. I mean, it still doesn't, because I jumped away from it really fast, and I thought I wasn't going to say it out loud. I was like, I don't know.
You have to model this because that's the instruction. Good job.
Very honest here. And then,
but don't tell me a second image yet. Okay. Stay with that image for a second. No image is not worth it. Every image has something to say, and this is the trick of this work, is always to honor that first thing. So just describe it a little bit more in detail. Instead of running away from it, go towards it. Just describe how it looked, how it made you feel, what it seemed to be like.
You know, I don't have a particular cartoon character for it, but it reminded me of those old cartoons I used to watch when I was little that had personified fruit, personified elements, and it was a very happy feeling. It was a very not necessarily silly, but it was silly in the sense that it was free. It was like a free piece of an image of a cartoon from when I was little, just because it was fun. Really, that's really all it felt like. Like, oh, well, that's fun. Wait, what is that? You know.
So what I want you to notice about it, the image itself was fun, right?
Yeah.
And funny.
Yeah.
And the feeling of it is like happy, delightful.
Yeah, I was dumbfounded.
But what was your first reaction when you got it?
My first reaction was, no, that's not, you know, what is that? You know, like, you can't say that, like a cartoon grape.
So here's the thing I want to say that's super important about this. Both for you and for the whole vision of the summit, your main question you asked me was, we can't write what we really want because of what we should write. And then the next thing you told me after was, oh, I really want to write rhyming poetry because I just love it. And then I used to do spoken, but I stopped because I shouldn't. Well, I hate to tell you this, but I'm afraid you're supposed to be that really purple googly-eyed grape thing and let the energy of that. This is what I often say to people, breathe that in. I think it's a very important message for your whole summit. If you get purple googly-eyed grapes and you love it and it makes you happy, that's okay.
The other message too that I realized was very clear was that I learned a lot when I watched those cartoons. Like, it was a quick feeling of like, oh yeah, because that was like fun. It was fun to learn that way, to experience.
What a concept.
Yeah.
We have almost this idea, especially writers, and this is what you're telling me, we aren't allowed to have fun. It can't be fun. You had to run away from that fun image. That was your first impulse. Is I can't tell them I got this crazy fun image. But honestly, what you're also saying is that when we have fun, we really feel connected. We feel inspired. People are much more moved to action and change when they are emotionally touched, whether it's fun, it's joy, right? It's from the heart. You want to write from the heart. And I hope this image is really like a mascot for your whole summit, to give everybody permission to be honest.
Definitely.
To share those wacky things. I always tell everybody I'm deep and a little wacky.
Yes,
and I'm proud of it, right? Because we need that wacky, imaginative side and we need deep.
Yeah.
It has to source deep.
Yeah.
But we need that wacky side. And so I think that it's so up and amazing with this work. If you trust the first thing you get, you will get something very wise and important that you need to know. And for everybody listening, if you don't understand what the heck it means, you're going to have an opportunity to share it in the Facebook group. You'll have a link to talk to me. We won't leave you hanging because sometimes we can't see it ourselves.
The second thing came in really clear that now I'll say, because I wasn't going to say this either. It was interesting. Like, it came so fast that I didn't understand. Was this truly beautiful blue sky. And to me, it wasn't interesting enough to talk about to you on this. I was going to say, well, you can't just say it's a clear blue sky because there's nothing there, you know? But now I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. It was a beautiful, just clear blue sky. And then I was actually having a hard time searching. My try harder brain came in. And the
Right.
try harder brain went, oh, it's got to be a sky in Hawaii. Where's the palm trees? Make it easier. Where, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, okay, palm tree. And then you said, what's the first thing? I was like, grapes. You know, like that's the way the subconscious works, you know?
Super important. That is really, really the biggest key to the power of this work, is that it gives you access.
Yeah.
It outsmarts that stuff pops in before your try harder mind and your resistance has time to stop you.
Yes.
It's tricky. And
yeah, great way to do, like you could, since you don't have to tell anybody, I mean, doing it alone, if you were willing, I don't think you can do it alone personally.
You can. You can learn to do, I now have been practicing, you can completely do this as a daily practice on your own. My clients can do it much better now because they have more practice at trusting what they get and interpreting it. So it's good to have a little bit of support and trust, like just what you went through, right? You couldn't really trust that thing you got. And if nobody talked to you about it, you'd basically ignore it.
Yeah. Totally.
Right. And so it takes a little learning. I call it like developing your metaphor muscles and trusting that. But this actually works. I had a funny experience the other day. I was like, do I meditate? Like I walk in the forest a lot, but I was like, well, I don't do sit still and quiet very well, but I was like, I'm going to do my own process. And those 5 steps, if you can do them by yourself, but sometimes you, just like with any practice, you need a little bit of practice on the practice.
Yeah. This is awesome. Thank you so much. This is so much fun. So just one last question. Do you have so this is a great process. Any advice to the woman or man, over 40 who really thinks that writing and being a writer isn't quote unquote worth it anymore, or that their dream as a writer is sort of lost? My thing is, if you know that you're a writer, if you know it's your soul's calling, so here's the question really, can you give a little bit of advice how when people know that it's their soul's calling to write something, anything, and they ignore it, it hurts their health, it hurts their life, it hurts their relationships, it hurts everything. A little bit of inspiration, I think we got some of it actually in this process, but to keep going, that you've seen that with persistence, I'm sure you have, of all people, seen that with a little bit of persistence and the right coaching really, or the right, friends or what am I thinking, resources, that to really follow that calling is important.
I mean, I'm 61 and I'm having a blast. Right? The women in my group some are in their 70s. So we're in a different time, and it's not crucial. What exactly it's not crucial the form. I think this is what will help people the most. It's extraordinarily soul nourishing to be creative.
Yes. In
and of itself. And I think if people put down the end result and start first for the experience and the authentic creative expression and the value of that. And I think a big part of it is to know that is really to combat that unworthiness that comes up, that I'm not worth it, that you're worth the investment. You're worth spending money on yourself, your vision, your creativity. And honestly, the biggest piece is we just can't do it alone, because when you try to do it alone, you just end up in the spin cycle.
Yes.
And I have honestly come to love, when I was in education and performance, I didn't know about online coaching. And now that I'm in that world, I love it so much.
Yeah.
I love it so much. I loved being in the classroom, and now I completely love not being in the classroom. And I love the reach that I have,
Yeah.
and the depth of connection that the women in my group have with each other from all over the world. And now on this will be airing just after I've come back from my retreat. I'm leading my very first retreat for my clients in Mexico at Lake Chapala near Guadalajara. And it's like taking them to that next deeper step of expansion, soul nourishment. And I call my program the In-Story Way to Create and Live an Illuminated Life.
Wow.
And for me to go somewhere where you can feel that light in your soul that's shining,
yeah,
is so, we're so worth it. And literally the women coming are all the way from in their, maybe we have a young 40s, somebody in their 40s, but mostly we're 50s, 60s, and 70s.
That's awesome.
And I think there's something really powerful that we still have to say. And I think that's the main thing, is that we still have something to say. People who have lived long, rich lives have something to say. And often the problem is you just don't know how to do it. And that's what you're going to get help with through this whole summit, that I can help you with, that Dawn can help you with, that, and trust the resonance and the calling that you feel, and take a step and, you know, commit to something, dive in. And yes, I always say you have to start a little before you feel ready.
Yes.
Like making my clients go on my summit.
I love it. I love it. It's so true. You are a dream. I love you. Your clients are so lucky to have you. And I'm so, like, tell me about the next retreat when it comes up, because it sounds like so much fun. So yes, thank you so much, Devorah. You also have an awesome gift.
So my gift is called the Soul Story Intensive, and it's 3 hours. It's like a little mini retreat online. It's an audio program, and each one of those hours is distinct and will take you into a deep place of spiritual, creative soul exploration, where you will get stories, images, metaphors. You will also be able to clear blocks. There's an aspect to the in-story guided process that is used really powerfully to clear some of the old stories that are in your way. And so along with that, you'll also get a complimentary soul story session with me for all the people from this summit. And what that will do is give you an opportunity to tell me what you got for your image. You can also post it in the Facebook group. And it will allow you to kind of dive into this work and see how it opens the door for you.
Ah, I love it. I can't wait. This is going to be so exciting. Thank you so much, Devorah. It is always a pleasure to be around you and to hear what you're up to. And thank you for that guided journey. It was so much fun.
You are so welcome. So welcome.
Okay. Have a great day and have so much fun in Mexico.
Thank you.